Max stood in the middle of his new apartment, blinking at the mess of moving boxes scattered around. The walls were painted a neutral cream color, the floor was smooth metal, and outside the large window, the city of Zithera Colony buzzed with flying vehicles and colorful neon signs. Max had moved far from Earth to study xenology, the study of alien life, and his first real experience living on a mixed human-alien colony was about to begin. He checked his watch. 2 p.m., exactly when his roommate was supposed to arrive. Max had met him online, sort of. The housing office had assured him that his roommate, an alien named Xylo, was friendly, intelligent, and mostly harmless. Mostly harmless was not the kind of confidence Max wanted, but it was all he had. A soft thrum filled the apartment like a faint heartbeat. Max turned sharply. A shimmering mist floated into the room. At first, he thought it was a cleaning. Drone gone haywire, but the mist began to form shapes, blurred humanoid shapes with shifting colors and patterns that danced across the walls. Hello? Max called, unsure if this was even the right way to greet an alien. The mist pulsed, then solidified slightly. A vaguely humanoid form emerged, tall and slender but with no clear facial features. Instead, colorful patterns moved across what Max assumed was Xylo's skin. Tiny hums, musical in nature, emanated from the form. I'm Max, he said cautiously. You must be Xylo. The alien shimmered brighter and let out a series of high-pitched, harmonious tones. Max guessed it was some form of greeting. Right. Hello, he said again, waving awkwardly. So, clothes? He glanced at Xylo's form. The alien wasn't wearing anything, or rather it had no concept of clothing at all, just a cloud of colors and vaguely humanoid shapes. Xylo tilted its head, or what Max thought was a head, and a long ribbon-like appendage stretched toward a nearby chair. In a blink, it had wrapped itself around the chair like a scarf and then released, floating back in the center of the room. Max took a deep breath. Okay. I guess we need to talk about human clothing. Over the next hour, Max tried explaining basic clothing to Xylo. He held up a t-shirt. You put this over your upper body. Xylo blinked, literally. Its colorful patterns shifted rapidly, as if laughing. Then it picked up the t-shirt and after inspecting it, placed it on the ceiling. Not there, Max said, pointing. Xylo tilted its head, hummed, and then wrapped the t-shirt around a lamp. Max groaned. The pants were even worse. Xylo picked them up, turned them inside out, and attempted to wear them on its head. Max watched, helpless and amused. You're not getting it, are you? Xylo's response was a low, cheerful hum, which Max decided meant, I am learning human. By the end of the first day, Max realized something important. Xylo was not bad at understanding. It was just thinking in ways humans couldn't. Where Max saw a shirt for the upper body, Xylo saw a flexible piece of material with potential uses beyond what humans could imagine. Despite the chaos, Max found himself smiling. Xylo's curiosity was infectious. Every attempt at clothing ended in laughter, sometimes at Max, sometimes at Xylo. There was something joyful about watching a mind entirely different from his own explore the most ordinary human concepts. That evening, Max unpacked his own clothes, thinking about how much easier it would have been to have a human roommate. But then he caught a glimpse of Xylo attempting to drape a towel over a lamp, humming a tune that sounded almost like a happy song. Max laughed. Maybe this roommate wouldn't be so bad after all. The next morning, Max woke to a strange sight. Xylo had shaped itself into a humanoid form, standing by the window staring at the colony outside. Its colors shimmered in calming blues and greens. Max noticed it was still completely unclothed in human terms, but the patterns seemed to form a kind of abstract outfit. Morning, Max said cautiously. Ready for another clothing lesson? Xylo's response was a melodic hum, rising and falling like a question. Max nodded, taking it as agreement. He grabbed a shirt and held it out. Okay, let's start simple. Upper body. Xylo inspected the shirt carefully. Then, in a move that made Max double take, it tied the shirt into a complex knot around its torso. The result wasn't really a shirt anymore, but it was a wearable sculpture. Max stared. Well, that's one way to do it. Xylo hummed proudly. Its colors shifted to bright yellow. Happiness, Max guessed. For the rest of the morning, the apartment became a miniature fashion studio. Socks went on fingers, belts became necklaces, and towels were transformed into flowing cloaks. Max tried to keep up, occasionally laughing so hard that he had to sit down. By midday, Max was exhausted. Xylo, however, seemed more energized than ever. It floated over to a box of random household items and began combining them into what looked like a bizarre wearable hat made from a toaster, a spatula, and a pair of sunglasses. Max sighed. Okay, maybe we need rules. But before he could explain, Xylo spun around, the toaster hat wobbling precariously, and accidentally knocked over a plant. Soil scattered everywhere. Max groaned but couldn't help laughing. This was going to be an interesting semester. After lunch, Max and Xylo sat side by side. Xylo didn't speak human words, but it hummed softly while arranging various objects into patterns. Max realized something. Xylo wasn't just learning clothing. It was learning about human habits and aesthetics in its own way. Hey, Maxie, said more to himself than Xylo. Maybe humans aren't the only ones who think clothing has rules. Maybe we're just used to boring ones. Xylo responded with a cheerful hum, brightening its colors. By evening, Max decided it was time to leave Xylo alone for a bit. The apartment was messy. Shirts hung from shelves, socks on the ceiling, and the toaster hat had somehow ended up on the floor. But Xylo seemed content. It floated in the center of the room, humming a quiet tune. Max collapsed onto his bed, exhausted but happy. He thought about the weeks ahead. Teaching Xylo about clothing would be a challenge, yes, but maybe the real lesson would be about patience, creativity, and seeing the world in ways he never imagined. Outside, the colony lights flickered like stars, and somewhere in the distance a human family and an alien family walked past, chatting and laughing together. Max realized that in a city full of differences, maybe having an alien roommate who didn't understand clothes was exactly the right kind of adventure. The next morning, Max woke to a familiar sound, a soft, musical hum drifting through the apartment. He rolled over and saw Xylo hovering in the middle of the room, its colors swirling like liquid rainbows. The alien's form was vaguely humanoid, but every movement was unpredictable and graceful, almost like it was dancing. Max groaned and rubbed his eyes. Good morning, Xylo. Ready for another clothing lesson? Xylo tilted its head and let out a melodic trill, a sound Max had come to understand as its way of saying, "Yes, I am ready." Max sighed and sat on the edge of his bed. Okay, today we're going to try something different. We're going to focus on simple clothes first, one step at a time. Shirt, pants, socks, shoes. Got it? Xylo responded with a bright flash of colors, which Max interpreted as got it, or at least he hoped that's what it meant. He grabbed a plain blue t-shirt from the pile of laundry. Upper body first. You put this over your torso. Xylo inspected the shirt carefully. Then it paused, stretched one of its ribbon-like appendages, and gently wrapped the shirt around a nearby lamp instead of its body. Max groaned. No, not the lamp. Xylo tilted its head and hummed, colors shifting in what Max guessed was confusion. It's just so soft, Max muttered, exasperated. I get it, but humans wear clothes on themselves, not the furniture. After several failed attempts, Xylo tried something different. It folded the shirt into a complicated origami-like shape and pressed it against its torso. The shirt stayed in place, but Max couldn't tell if it was actually wearing it or just displaying it as an art piece. Well, that counts as progress, Max said reluctantly. Next, he handed Xylo a pair of pants. Okay, legs, this is for your legs. Xylo stared at them for a long moment. Then, in a move that made Max blink, it attempted to put the pants on its head. Max groaned so loudly that Xylo looked alarmed. No, not the head. Legs! Xylo floated a little higher, then carefully wrapped the pants around its upper torso, leaving the lower half of its body completely exposed. Max scratched his head. That's one way to wear them, I guess. Hours passed. Socks went on fingers, shirts were tied like scarves, belts became crowns. Xylo was creative in ways Max had never imagined, and although the results weren't exactly practical, they were undeniably fascinating. At one point, Xylo wrapped a curtain around itself and floated in the center of the room, humming proudly. Xylo, that's a curtain, not a cape, Max said, trying not to laugh. Xylo's colors glowed a cheerful yellow, which Max interpreted as, I like it. The alien seemed genuinely happy with every experiment, whether or not it made any human sense. By late afternoon, Max decided to take a break. He slumped onto the couch, exhausted from correcting Xylo's every misstep. Xylo, on the other hand, seemed energized. It floated around the room, picking up random objects, a toaster, a broom, even a pair of Max's shoes. Max watched in disbelief as Xylo carefully arranged the items into what could only be described as a bizarre fashion sculpture. Xylo, no, those are my shoes, Max protested. Xylo hummed innocently, tilting its head. Max realized this alien had no concept of ownership in the human sense. To Xylo, everything was a potential tool, material, or accessory. Max sighed and sat down. You know what? Fine. Be creative. Just not the toaster on your head this time. Xylo's response was a cheerful trill. Its colors shifted in patterns that looked almost like laughter. After lunch, Max tried a new tactic. He set up a small clothing training station on the floor. Shirts, pants, socks, shoes, and even a few hats. He also put down a notebook with sketches showing how clothes were worn. Okay, Max said, pointing to the sketches. This is what humans usually do. Upper body, lower body, feet, head. Follow the guide. Can you do that? Xylo hovered over the sketches, humming thoughtfully. Then it pointed one of its appendages at the drawings and a ribbon of color projected from it, copying the sketches onto the floor in glowing light. Max blinked. Wow. You're making your own guide? That's, actually smart. Xylo floated over to the clothing pile and picked up a shirt. It studied the glowing sketches, then carefully wrapped the shirt around its torso in a surprisingly correct way. Max held his breath. Could this be the breakthrough? It was partially correct. The shirt covered the torso, yes, but the sleeves were twisted into loops above Xylo's shoulders. Max groaned, then laughed. Well, close enough. Encouraged, Xylo moved on to the pants. This time it actually managed to wear them in the right place. Max clapped. Yes, see? You're getting it. Xylo's colors pulsed bright green. Excitement. Then, without warning, it attached the socks to the ceiling, spun around, and somehow wore the shoes on its hands instead of its feet. Max doubled, over laughing. Oh no, not the shoes on your hands. Xylo floated higher, dangling from a beam in the ceiling while humming proudly. Okay, Max said between laughs. Maybe step 3 will come later. Let's focus on shirts and pants for now. By the evening, Max realized something important. Teaching Xylo clothing wasn't about enforcing human rules. It was about guiding creativity. Every mistake, every bizarre arrangement, was a learning opportunity for both of them. Max even found himself thinking that some of Xylo's ideas were kinda cool. Hey, he said, holding up a scarf. Maybe you can make that into a shoulder wrap, like a fashion accessory. Xylo's colors shifted and it carefully draped the scarf over its shoulders. Max nodded approvingly. Not bad. Not bad at all. Dinner time was another adventure. Xylo attempted to fold a napkin into a tiny hat and place it on its own head. Max laughed so hard that he spilled some of his soup. Xylo floated over, gently tilting its head as if to say, Are you okay? Max wiped his mouth, still chuckling. Yeah, I'm fine. You're just you. After dinner, Max decided it was time for reflection. He grabbed his notebook and wrote down notes on Xylo's behavior. Creative, curious, energetic, sometimes confusing, but always positive. He smiled. You know, I think you might actually teach me more about life than I teach you about clothing. Xylo hummed softly, in agreement, colors shifting in a gentle, glowing pattern. Before bedtime, Max and Xylo had one final activity. Max held up a small blanket. Okay, try this one. Make it into clothing. Xylo floated over, examined it, and then, to Max's surprise, carefully wrapped it around its form like a flowing robe. It even managed to tuck the edges neatly, under its own shape. Max's jaw dropped. Wow, that's actually wearable. Xylo glowed with pride. Max chuckled. Congratulations. That's your first successful outfit. Well, partially successful anyway. As Max lay in bed that night, he reflected on the day. Xylo had made mistakes, of course, but the alien had also learned, adapted, and created something entirely new. Max realized that teaching wasn't just about correcting errors, it was about exploring possibilities together. And Xylo wasn't just learning. It was changing the way Max saw the world. Ordinary things like shirts, pants, and shoes suddenly seemed more flexible, more fun, and more full of possibility. Max smiled to himself. Tomorrow, we try shoes and hats. Wish me luck. Xylo floated nearby, humming a cheerful tune as if to say, Good luck, human friend, we will make it happen. Max never thought a human-alien friendship could become so exhausting, but living with Xylo meant every day felt like an unpredictable science experiment. One moment, the alien was humming happily while folding socks into star shapes. The next, it was balancing a saucepan on its head, convinced it was a stylish hat. Max had learned two important things in the past week. Xylo was incredibly creative. Xylo had no idea how human clothing was supposed to work. And now, Max faced a new problem. Hey, Max, his friend Lila had called him earlier. We're having a little interspecies hangout tonight in the campus common room. Bring your roommate. I want to meet this alien you keep complaining about. Max had hesitated. Bringing Xylo to a human-alien social event sounded like asking for trouble. What if Xylo wore a lamp on its head again? What if it tried to turn someone's backpack into pants? But Lila had insisted, and Max knew he couldn't hide Xylo forever. So here he was, standing in their messy apartment, watching Xylo experiment with another outfit. The alien had wrapped itself in 3 scarves, tied 2 belts around its torso, and placed a frying pan across its chest like armor. Max covered his face with his hands. Xylo. No. Please no. You can't wear that to a social gathering. Xylo hummed innocently, its colors pulsing in a bright rainbow pattern. Max took a deep breath. Okay, listen carefully. Tonight we're going to meet other humans. You need to wear normal clothes. Shirt, pants, shoes. That's it. No frying pans. No lamps. No curtains. Xylo tilted its head, then slowly floated toward the pile of clothes Max had laid out on the couch. The alien examined the items with serious attention, as if preparing for a very important test. Finally, after several minutes of humming and reshaping its body, Xylo presented itself in what Max could only describe as unique. The alien had managed to put on a shirt the right way, but the pants were worn backwards and the shoes, oh no, the shoes, were on its hands. Max groaned loudly. Xylo, feet, not hands. Xylo looked down at its shoe hands, then back, at Max humming a puzzled tune. Max threw his hands in the air. Fine, whatever, maybe no one will notice. The common room was buzzing with voices when Max and Xylo arrived. Humans, aliens, and even a few robots filled the space, chatting, laughing, and sharing food. Colorful banners hung from the ceiling, and the smell of spiced noodles mixed with alien fruit filled the air. Lila spotted Max right away. She waved, enthusiastically, then froze when she saw Xylo. Oh my stars, that's your roommate? Max rubbed the back of his neck nervously. Yeah, this is Xylo. Xylo hummed brightly, its colors shifting in a wave of warm yellows and oranges. Lila blinked, then smiled. Well, at least it looks happy. Other people started noticing Xylo too. At first they stared, some confused, some curious, a few trying not to laugh. But then something unexpected happened. Instead of mocking Xylo's strange outfit, people began complimenting it. Whoa, those shoes on hands are actually kind. Of cool, one student said. I like the backwards pants, it looks edgy, another added. Even an alien from the insectoid Vrick species tilted its head and clicked approvingly. Unique style. Very expressive. Max's jaw dropped. Wait, are they actually impressed? Xylo, oblivious to human fashion rules, glowed with pride. It began humming louder, spinning slowly in the center of the room as if showing off its style. The crowd clapped and cheered. Max wanted to sink into the floor. Oh no, they think Xylo's starting a fashion trend. Lila nudged him playfully. Relax, Max. Your roommate's a hit. Look, they even started calling it the Innovator. Sure enough, a group of students began chanting softly, Innovator! Innovator! Xylo responded by striking a dramatic pose, shoes still firmly on its hands. The crowd laughed and applauded. Max buried his face in his palms, torn between embarrassment and pride. The evening continued, and Xylo became the center of attention. Every few minutes it would modify its outfit by reshaping its body, draping a napkin like a tie, or balancing a fruit bowl on its shoulder. Each time the crowd roared with laughter and admiration. Max sat in the corner sipping juice, watching the madness unfold. At first he was worried. But as the night went on, he realized something important. Xylo wasn't just entertaining people. It was making them feel comfortable. Humans, aliens, and robots, all different species, were laughing together, united by Xylo's ridiculous fashion experiments. For once, no one cared about cultural differences or social awkwardness. They were just having fun. Lila sat beside Max. You know, I think your roommate has a gift. Max raised an eyebrow. A gift for chaos? No, Lila said with a grin. A gift for breaking rules in a way that makes people happy. Look at them. Everyone's relaxed, smiling. That's rare on a mixed colony campus. Max followed her gaze. Xylo was currently wearing a stack of paper plates like a crown, humming proudly as a group of students clapped in rhythm. Max chuckled softly. Yeah, maybe you're right. Later that night, when the party ended and the crowd slowly dispersed, Max and Xylo walked back to their apartment. The halls were quiet, and the soft hum of Xylo echoed like a lullaby. No, Max said. I thought tonight would be a disaster. I thought you'd embarrass me in front of everyone. Xylo tilted its head, humming curiously, but instead, Max smiled faintly. You made everyone laugh, you made them happy, and somehow they liked your, clothing style. Xylo's colors glowed a gentle blue and green, like calm ocean waves. Max chuckled. You're ridiculous, but maybe that's not a bad thing. When they reached the apartment, Xylo floated toward the clothing pile again. Max groaned. Please don't put the toaster on your head again. Xylo paused, then set the toaster aside, and instead wrapped itself in a simple blanket like a robe. Max blinked. Wow, that's actually normal. Xylo hummed softly, almost like a lullaby, and settled in the center of the room. Max shook his head, smiling as he lay down on his bed. Good night, Innovator, he whispered. After the party in the common room, Max thought things would calm down, but he was wrong. The next morning, when he entered the kitchen, he found Xylo standing proudly in the middle of the room. The alien had wrapped itself in 3 bedsheets, tied them together with electrical cords, and was wearing a colander like a crown. Max froze. Good morning. Xylo hummed brightly, the colors on its body flashing pink and gold. Max rubbed his temples. You're still experimenting with clothes, aren't you? The alien tilted its head and hummed in a way Max had already learned to recognize. Of course I am, Max sighed, but then he remembered the party. Xylo's fashion disasters had made everyone laugh and connect, Maybe instead of fighting this, he could work with it. Maybe he could teach Xylo how to mix human clothing rules with its alien creativity. That idea made Max grin. Okay, Xylo, new plan. We're making a clothing guide. A human-alien fashion manual. Something that shows both normal ways and your ways. Xylo's colors glowed bright yellow, like a sunbeam. It hummed excitedly and bounced in the air. Yeah, I thought you'd like that, Max said, laughing. They started that afternoon. Max laid out a notebook on the table. On one side of each page, he sketched a simple human clothing style: jeans and a t-shirt, a suit, pajamas, a hoodie with sweatpants. On the other side, Xylo was supposed to draw, or more accurately, project, its alien version. Xylo took the task seriously. When Max drew jeans and a t-shirt, Xylo responded by making a glowing picture of pants that floated slightly above the legs and a shirt that shimmered with colors depending on mood. Wow, Max said, staring. That's actually cool. Like a shirt that tells people how you feel. Xylo hummed proudly. Next, Max drew a simple hat. Xylo's version was a floating ring of cloth that hovered a few inches above the head instead of resting on it. That's not a hat, Max muttered. That's a halo. Xylo hummed louder, almost like laughter, and added little glowing sparks to the drawing. Max shook his head. Fine. A floating hat. Why not? Hours passed. The notebook filled with strange, creative designs. Some were ridiculous, like shoes that had tiny wings and flapped when you walked, but others actually looked wearable. Max started to wonder if Xylo's fashion sense might inspire something new on campus. Over the next week, Max and Xylo turned the apartment into a mini fashion studio. Clothes hung from the ceiling, socks were pinned to the walls as samples, and fabric scraps littered the floor. Max ordered cheap materials from the colony market so Xylo could practice safely. One evening, Max found Xylo working on something strange. The alien had wrapped a t-shirt around itself, but it was glowing softly in different colors. Max blinked. Wait, is that shirt glowing because you're glowing? Xylo hummed, then pointed at Max. The shirt changed to a soft green glow, then a bright orange. Max realized what was happening. You're syncing your colors with the shirt. You just invented a mood shirt. Xylo glowed proudly. Max laughed. Xylo, that's genius. Humans would pay a fortune for clothes like that. Encouraged, they began making a list of hybrid clothing ideas: mood shirts, glow based on the wearer's feelings; floating hats, hover above the head and sparkle when tilted; soft shoes. Instead of being stiff, they reshaped to match the ground for maximum comfort; curtain cloaks, elegant robes made from ordinary curtains but styled properly. Max couldn't believe it. What started as chaos was slowly becoming innovation. Of course, not everything worked. One day, Xylo insisted on testing its winged shoes. Max watched as the alien tied little paper wings to its sneakers and hummed with excitement. When it tried walking, the shoes flapped wildly and made Xylo trip into the couch. Max laughed so hard he almost fell off his chair. Okay, maybe that's not ready for public use. Xylo hummed stubbornly and tried again. This time the wings tore off completely. Max was in tears from laughter. Please, stop. You're killing me. Even failures were fun. And Max found himself enjoying the experiments as much as Xylo did. Word of their clothing guide began spreading on campus. Lila dropped by one evening to see what the fuss was about. When she walked into the apartment, her jaw dropped. Max, what is this place? A laundry explosion? Clothes were hanging everywhere. Xylo floated in the center, proudly wearing a scarf that shimmered with rainbow colors. Max shrugged. Welcome to our fashion lab. Lila laughed. Oh, I have to see this guide. She flipped through the notebook and burst out laughing. Floating hats, mood shirts, shoes that reshape themselves. Max, this is insane. It's Xylo's ideas, Max said with a grin. But some of them actually make sense. Lila shook her head in disbelief. You know, people would love this. It's silly, yes, but it's also new and fun. Xylo hummed cheerfully, spinning slowly in the air. A few days later, Max and Xylo were invited to show their fashion guide at a small campus fair. Max was nervous, but Xylo was glowing with excitement. They set up a simple booth with sketches, notes, and a few examples. At first, people came just to laugh. But soon the mood shirts caught everyone's attention. Students tried them on and gasped when the colors shifted with their feelings. "This is amazing," one student said, watching their shirt turn pink when they blushed. "I want one of those floating hats," another shouted. Max couldn't believe it. Xylo's strange ideas were actually becoming popular. What started as confusion and chaos was turning into a new trend. By the end of the fair, their booth was crowded with curious students and even a few professors. Xylo hummed happily the entire time, glowing with bright, joyful colors. That night, back in the apartment, Max collapsed on the couch. "I can't believe it. People actually liked your clothes." Xylo floated beside him, draped in its rainbow scarf, and hummed softly. "You know," Max said thoughtfully, "when I first met you, I thought you were just weird. I thought I had to teach you how to act human. But now I realize, maybe humans can learn from you too." Xylo's color shifted into a calm blue and green, like waves on the ocean. Max chuckled. "Yeah, you're not just my roommate anymore. You're my partner in chaos." Xylo hummed, brightening into gold. Over the next few weeks, their fashion guide grew thicker and more detailed. Max kept adding human notes. "This is how a shirt should be worn." Xylo kept adding alien modifications. "This is how a shirt could be worn." Together, they created something entirely new. By the time midterms rolled around, Max was exhausted from studying, but every time he looked at Xylo experimenting with clothes, he couldn't help smiling. His alien roommate might never understand human clothing perfectly, but maybe that was the point. Maybe Xylo wasn't supposed to copy humans. Maybe Xylo was supposed to teach humans new ways of seeing the ordinary. The big day had finally arrived. The Colony University was holding its annual Festival of Cultures, a huge event where students from different planets showed their food, art, music, and traditions. Max wasn't surprised when Xylo insisted on joining. After weeks of experiments, failures, and laughter, the alien was more excited than ever to share its clothing guide. Max, however, was nervous. He stood in front of the mirror in a simple t-shirt and jeans, running his hand through his hair. "Okay, we're just showing sketches and maybe a few mood shirts, nothing too crazy, right?" When he turned around, he froze. Xylo floated proudly in the middle of the room, glowing with bright orange joy. Its body was wrapped in a masterpiece of fabric, a robe made of layered colors that shimmered as if alive. Floating just above its head was a ring of glowing cloth, a perfect halo hat. "Xylo," Max whispered, staring. "You actually look amazing." The alien hummed brightly, glowing pink at the compliment. Max chuckled. "Well, I guess we're going to turn heads today." The campus plaza was packed. Booths stretched across the square, each decorated with flags, banners, and strange smells of alien food. Music filled the air, mixing different rhythms and instruments into a strange but beautiful chaos. Max carried their display board under one arm, while Xylo floated beside him, drawing stares from everyone. Some whispered, some laughed, but most were curious. "Over here," Max said, leading them to their small booth between a Martian cooking stand and a Venusian art gallery. They set up their notebook, sketches, and a rack of mood shirts. At first, nobody came. Students passed by, glancing at Xylo's glowing outfit, then moving on to sample food or admire alien art. Max sighed. Maybe this was a mistake. People came here for culture, not curtain cloaks and floating hats. Xylo tilted its head, glowing softly with calm green, and hummed as if to say, "Be patient." And then the first student approached. It was Lila. She had a smile on her face and an empty plate from the food booth. "I wouldn't miss this for the world," she said. "Come on, show me what you've got." Xylo hummed happily, glowing gold. Max handed her a mood shirt. "Here, try this." She slipped it on. Instantly, the shirt glowed a soft pink. Lila's cheeks matched the color and she laughed nervously. Oh no, it tells everyone I'm embarrassed. The students nearby turned, curious. More people gathered as Lila twirled around, her shirt glowing brighter with each laugh. Soon, another student tried one. His shirt glowed blue when he frowned, then orange when he smiled. Whoa, he shouted. This is the coolest thing ever. More students crowded around the booth. They asked questions, tried on shirts, and even flipped through the clothing guide. Some laughed at the floating hats. Others admired Xylo's sketches. Max couldn't believe it. Their booth was turning into one of the busiest at the festival. By the afternoon, even professors came by. One of them, an older woman with silver hair, examined the mood shirts carefully. Fascinating, she said. A living expression of emotion through clothing. This could be revolutionary for psychology studies. Max blinked. Revolutionary? Well, it was kind of an accident. The professor smiled. Sometimes accidents are the best inventions. Xylo glowed bright gold, clearly enjoying the praise. As the sun began to set, the festival announced its final event, the Parade of Cultures. Representatives from each booth were invited to walk across the main stage, showing off their traditions. Max groaned. Oh no, a stage? In front of the whole campus? This is going to be a disaster. Xylo hummed insistently and tugged at Max's sleeve. No, Max said firmly. Absolutely not. I'm not walking up there in front of everyone. Xylo's colors shifted to a pleading blue. It hummed again, softer this time. Max sighed. Fine, but only because you're already dressed like a glowing rainbow wizard. When their turn came, Max and Xylo stepped onto the stage. Hundreds of students filled the plaza, cheering and clapping for each group. Max felt his knees shaking. He wanted to melt into the ground, but then he looked at Xylo. The alien floated proudly, glowing with every color at once, its halo hat spinning gently. Above its head, the crowd gasped. Whispers spread through the plaza. At first Max thought they were laughing, but then the cheers began. Look at that outfit. It's beautiful. Where can I get a mood shirt? Xylo spun slowly, showing off its shimmering robe. The halo hat sparkled, casting little lights across the stage. The crowd roared with applause. Max couldn't believe it. They weren't laughing at Xylo. They were admiring it. For the first time, Xylo wasn't just the weird alien who forgot how clothes worked. It was a star. After the parade, dozens of students crowded around their booth again. Some asked for sketches, others begged to buy mood shirts. A group even asked Xylo to design costumes for their next theater show. Max was overwhelmed. This is insane. I didn't think people would actually want this stuff. Lila grinned. Max, this is more than fashion, it's art. And Xylo is an artist. Xylo glowed a deep golden orange, humming with pride. That night, after the festival ended, Max and Xylo sat on the apartment balcony. The sky above the colony was filled with stars. Max leaned back in his chair, exhausted but happy. You know, when you first moved in, I thought you'd drive me crazy. Clothes on wrong, chaos everywhere, me running around fixing it. He laughed softly. But now I see it. You weren't wrong, you were just different, and different made everything better. Xylo hummed gently, glowing soft blue and green like waves on water. Max raised his soda can in a toast. To my alien roommate, the fashion hero of the festival. Xylo glowed gold again and clinked its glass of glowing liquid against his. For a while they sat in silence, watching the stars. Max thought about everything that had happened. The laughter, the chaos, the failures, and the final victory. Maybe Xylo would never understand human clothes the way he did. But maybe that was fine. Because Xylo had created something even better. A new way of looking at the ordinary. Max smiled. You know, next year's festival is going to be even crazier. Xylo hummed in agreement, glowing brighter than the stars above.